Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I think after hearing the previous speaker and especially the last poignant audio clip that he gave, I'm going to move you to another subject, but in a way, I guess, related, because I strongly believe in what I once read about Winston Churchill say, Wright, and that is that first we shape our buildings, and then our buildings shape us. So every time I go about designing new projects, this thought lies in my mind that whatever we do as architects and come out with the way the building should be, or the environment should be, or the way the ensemble of buildings in a campus should be, I strongly believe that that goes on to make changes in the way we believe and think. So what I'm going to share here with you in the next few minutes is images, visuals of certain projects, but what runs through common as a thread in these images is that you will see that buildings can be of different, they can look different, and they can respond to different things. It could be the place, it could be the climate, it could be the history, it could be the moment when they were conceived, all these factors. But at the end of the day, I think what they must run through is a certain kind of contextual relevance. And I strongly also believe that buildings are not meant to respond to an architectural style, but they must be timeless, because they go on to live much longer than you and I ever will be on this planet. So what you see here is buildings, how they have evolved over time. And I like this image because no matter Egyptian architecture, which people talk about having a monumental scale, and the way they always wanted the common man to realize that, you know, the kings were much more powerful. They were like gods at that time. But, so therefore, the buildings that they lived in were supposed to be monumental. But then this image shows you that no matter how monumental they might try to build, nature always still remains far above towering and supreme. This is a university campus called the Gautam Buddha University, right here in Greater Noida. This is a university, so that means students from all parts of the country, all parts of the world will come here to learn, live together, and then go on to be leaders in their own disciplines. So when we got this commission to design it, it was a flat, featureless site. It's a large site with 500 acres of land, but not a single tree on this piece of land. So the idea here is that how do you create something which becomes inspirational for people who are going to come and study here? So the first image that comes to one's mind, I happen to have quite a few things in my hand here, but the first image that comes to one's mind when you think of Buddha, because this is called the Buddha University, is Lord Buddha in his meditation posture. So we thought that and that's the first image I think that comes to anyone's mind, not an architect, but I would say anyone for that matter. So we took that image of of Buddha and have it on the site. And now what is the body, the human body? You have the brains, and brains is, I would relate it to the library. So at the head of Buddha is the library. Where is the body? The body is what a university would be, the academic learning environment. So at the body, the different schools come up. And then in a university, unlike any other government setting or any other setting, the administration is supposed to serve the university, not control the university. So the administration is at the feet of the Buddha's image. And that's how this whole project started getting conceived. So what I'm trying to show through this image is that even if you have a blank canvas or a flat featureless land, how do you begin to bring in some character into that whole site or that whole project? So this is the bird's eye view, where that's the library building, that's the and Buddhism has the eightfold path. So even while the program talked about 5 schools, we thought we should go beyond, because education is something which changes over time. Today they might want 5 schools, eventually there will be new disciplines that will emerge. So these are the 8 schools, and what comes together is, I believe that in any educational campus, we must not just be confined to classrooms. It's about learning and interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary learning. So that's why there are spaces conceived in this campus where people will not just be in the classroom, but come out and interact with each other. And then architecture is always also about having some relevance to history, culture, as I said, context, that's important. But yet it should also embrace technology. You can't be sort of transformed into a certain era and continue to live in that era. So how do you reflect on technology? So what you see here is the statue of Buddha, which is there right there being reflected in the lake, and a lake has been created to give it that kind of an atmosphere and microclimate in the campus. But behind that, you see a modern library building. So you have the statue of Buddha and you have the library building behind it. And then the element of jali, which you see in any monument that you visit in India, you see the jali element because it's a very climate sensitive and climate relevant element, which is, it shades the building, it reduces the heat going into the building, etc., etc. So what we did was, we used that jali, but we gave it a modern technology, which is that we took the metaphor of a curtain hanging from the top, and the jali, it's a stone jali, and it's hung from the top. And what is the design of the jali itself? It is inspired by Buddhist text. And who creates this jali? It's handcrafted, it's handmade. So all these ideas, which you might have heard of or read of, but why? How do we bring it together? The idea is jali, it's an environment-friendly feature. By using, making it handcrafted, you are giving employment to the local craftsmen also, rather than just making these machine-made. And by using it like a curtain or hanging it from the top, you are experimenting with a new modern style, rather than just the conventional way of having it fixed over a window, you hang it from the top. So that's how, in this field of architecture, one can go on to create various things. But what I want to share with this audience, which is obviously non-architects, is that in any field that you are, you have two choices. There are paths which have been set and tread upon, and you can very safely continue to do so. And the other side is something where you wish to make a mark. You want to innovate. You want to do something different, but not just for the heck of it. You want to take the learnings from the past and then try to innovate. And I think that's the architectural response I have always believed in, and these images are going to give you that those glimpses. So even if it is the support staff in a campus, which means the peons and the gardeners, etc., why can't they have beautiful housing as well? So that's the image you saw of that housing. Lost the visual there. But so it's an image where even housing for those people has been created very interestingly. This is another project where it's for the Dalai Lama. Now, Dalai Lama wanted a monastery to be created. The monastery had to be something like you see in the mountains. But while there you built in timber, here you had to build it in Delhi, in the Qutub institutional area. So how do you go about doing something using materials which are contextually relevant to a place like Delhi, and yet trying to create an atmosphere or an architecture which is supposed to respond to another area? So what you see here is, again, craftsmen come from the hills and work like this and create buildings in a very different fashion, but capturing those styles. In this building, there were no artificial paints used. So all that you see here is vegetable dyes made to make it more environment friendly. These are more projects which show that you create buildings which have a sense of modernity. Now this is for the election commission, the headquarters. So election, to me, if you go to the molecule of election, it's the panchayat. And where does the panchayat sit? Under a banyan tree. So we thought, why not have the element of the banyan tree on a very modern building, so that you can overlap the two, have a modernity, and yet draw relevance to what this building is all about. And how do you, so what is a banyan tree? It's after all something which gives you shade, and you're sitting under it with a sense of protection. So why not create something which we call the super tree, and you're sitting under these. It's still fostering interaction, but then it's not a tree really, but it's a metaphor of a tree. And what does it do? It's something which is a rain catcher. So whatever rain falls in, it goes through this, and you have rainwater harvesting pits. What does it do in the evening? During the day, these are solar panels, which you see in that kind of a shape of a branches. So the solar panels capture the solar power, and that's what starts lighting up this building. So you don't have to have those solar panels which you see, just those black rectangles. So it's about innovation, and yet it's about trying to give it a certain meaning. This is another image of a school, a pathway school, which is a residential school. And here what one did again was, we created this water body. Why? Because there is, you needed a tank, so that in case of fire, we didn't have large roads coming to this campus. So in case of fire, what do? You have a tank, but rather than making it an underground tank, you create a water body and a mural at the bottom of this lake. And the mural is again created by village craftswomen. So the idea was that you're building a modern campus, but why not have those villagers become part of this building or creation? And also the other notion that one tried to do here was that why should children learn about craft and sculpture sitting in classrooms or boardrooms like this, or meeting rooms like this? So we took a lot of sculptures and we placed them in different parts of the campus, because one thing I strongly feel is that we tend to, somewhere down the line, lack a certain civic sense. We go travel abroad, we admire this civic sense there, the clean roads, the walking areas, etc., the plazas, and here we seem to lack them or not have a sensitivity towards them. So I thought young minds, as they live on this campus, it's a residential school, as they live and grow on this campus and they start seeing sculptures around, they will learn to appreciate it as they grow up. And that's what a student's life is about. Students from different cultures coming together and learning from each other. This is a university, again in Kashmir, and the idea is that the architecture should respond to Kashmir and yet have modern elements in it. So it's about modernity, and it's still about climate and culture relevant architecture. This is another example. You might have seen this building in Connaught Place. Now it's designed for a developer, and if you walk down in Connaught Place, I feel again some sort of disappointment that there's no civic sense there. Now in Connaught Place, buildings are basically rectangular or orthogonal boxes, cuboids, concrete, dull, grey buildings. So the idea here was, why not create an architecture which brings color, which brings art into the city? So and also plazas, public spaces. So at the corner of two roads in the city, a plaza has been created, and this entire building has been clad in artwork, or like murals. It's been done all through, drawing inspiration from Mughal art, drawing inspiration from colonial elements of Connaught Place, and yet having its own identity. This building has been today selected amongst the most notable pieces of architecture in 20th century around the world. Then these buildings, these are corporate buildings, but they also reflect the ethos of the corporate world. So this particular case, the client has this corporate value of transparency. So the idea is, how do you bring in transparency? So if there are two building blocks, from one block you can see through all the other floors across. So it's that sense of transparency brought in. Again, it's a small site, and how do you reflect landscape within sort of a very modern building of glass and steel? So we have brought this metaphor of the tree of life right in the heart of the atrium. Another aspect of architecture I thought might be of interest to you, that how do we first imagine buildings, which is what we call it a three-dimensional graphic view, and then how do we go on to create them? Now this is also a housing, but just to show you another example that usually people live, if it's multi-family housing, it's a beautiful sense of community, but at the same time you need to have a sense of privacy. So how do you create privacy? What we've done here is, we've created this water stream, so the public domain where the community can gather is still very much there, but it's not right outside your bedroom or your living room. So if you're living on the ground floor of this apartment, you have still a kind of a boundary which is there, and the detailing of that can be such that people can still enjoy this water body, dipping their feet in water through that balcony. Then we also try to break notions of architecture where preconceived ideas. Usually when you see buildings around in Gurgaon, you have apartments, you have toilets where they make these small windows. Why do they have to be so small? You can still have that sense of privacy, but in India, in Delhi, a climate like Delhi where you enjoy light, good natural light, you enjoy the seasons. So what we've done here is, this is a toilet window, but then being made large, so that it still allows small apartments to have that sense of openness. Of course, when you want the privacy, you have curtains which can be drawn down, but you don't have to always just go with preconceived ideas. Just one last example, a high-rise building. Now this is a new culture India is emerging towards, where people are talking about using land. Land is a precious resource, so you build more, you build higher, taller, bigger. What do we do as architects in that? Yes, you can copy another building from Chicago or New York, but no. For what I believe is that it should somewhere have some kind of cultural relevance at a certain level. So in India, in our part of the culture, just the way a lady would always have a drape. It would be a veil, it could be a dupatta, but it's a certain culture that has been coming through years and decades and centuries. The same way, and that brings a sense of mystery, a sense of respect, a sense of relating to another person in a certain manner. So the same way, I thought, why should a building have another layer to it? Now that's not just because a woman has a layer to it that a building has to. There are certain meanings behind it. The meaning is that because if you build a very tall building in an area like Noida, it can, in case of wind, strong wind, sway. So to deflect the sway, you design the building that can be more sensitive to the wind movements. So by doing this kind of aerodynamic shape, you're breaking the strong winds against the building. The second thing, in our climate, it could be a glass building. And I think there's nothing wrong against a glass building. It's not environment unfriendly, provided it is handled well. And how do you handle it well? Just the way the Hawa Mahals in yesteryear were done. You create another layer to the building. So this is another screen to the building, which doesn't let the heat fall on the glass, but creates a huge sense of shadows on the surface, which will reduce the heat going into the building. So those kind of ideas are brought in. People want to live in apartments because that's what one can afford, but they still have that sense of, if they're coming from outside Delhi, in other parts, that you would like to have a bungalow, you would like to have a villa. Why? Because they enjoy the greenery, they enjoy the fresh air. So why not create buildings which allow you to have greenery? This is like, for instance, under construction in Gurgaon. So why not have that greenery happen in the buildings itself? Many such images, but and I could go on. But what I want to send the message through this or share with you young minds is that in any field that you are in, as I said earlier, there is always that possibility and potential for innovation. And that being one side of it, I think any field that you are in, one can excel, one can enjoy, provided you have a sense of passion. And that passion in any field, if it's there within you, can make the difference. And I think the time is there now in India, whether it's politically or whether it's any other way that we see, that we have seen so much around us, and there is a sense of frustration and exasperation also many times that we feel, that we cannot just sit back and, like the example that Nitin shared about the lady expecting the electrician to do everything, but not wanting to pay or not taking responsibility for it. I think somewhere the young minds sitting here need to see that we need to change our outlook. So if we want to do something to make a difference, we must believe in ourselves and really go out there and do it. Thank you.